In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Art of Move podcast. This is episode 103, where myself, Anthony Manuel, my good friend Dr. William Raybar are still out here in the Canadian Rockies trying to find the grand unified theory of human movement, biomechanics, functional training, and what it means to live and be in a human body. Today, we are joined by our good friend, the one, the only, David Weck. We are going to be talking about his new invention, the ProPulsar Vest. We are really, really excited to talk about his new inventions, talk about a couple of ideas that he had after listening to a recent episode that we did with Tom Myers. We're going to be expanding on some cool biomechanical ideas and generally geek out about movement as we always do. David, thank you, first of all, for jumping on with us. I'm really, really excited to chat.
Well, this is always one of my favorite venues to drill into it, right? Fearless explorers, seeking the truth.
That is exactly it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been working on, what has captured your interest? Obviously, you're working on some new inventions. What was some of the inspiration or the origins of some of the ideas that you got, and how did they start to come into fruition?
Well, since this has sort of been a lifelong journey and then sort of really intensified over the past 20 plus years, having the wherewithal gifted by the success of the BOSU Ball. So through the years, making discoveries, and when I heard your podcast with Thomas Myers, it was a wonderful episode. Thomas Myers is a friend, and we are lining up some work to do together in the future. And what really struck the chord for me was this, piezoelectric conversation. And what I reached out to you and what I guess, prompted this episode was I want to have some discussion on the skeleton. So the bone structure and the architecture of the body and how I think that may relate to the body electric and bringing a unique in the sense that I'm Western, mechanistic, the Eastern philosophy that I've studied for a long, long time. So I think that there's, I know that there's contribution to be had, but I think the scope of the contribution, when we look inward and we pursue the infinitesimal with infinite intent, I believe that that is the path forward for expanding human potential. And I can measure the results empirically, athletically, or, tasks or feats of strength. So we have the, empirical evidence that, yes, in fact, this approach with its specificity will help someone squat more weight, for example. We had 5 of our coaches at our last certification down in at Austin at the Onnit gym. 5 of our coaches reached out afterward to say, yes, I hit a PR in this, I hit a PR in that. And one of our coaches posted a 640-pound box squat that was a PR that he said if it were competition, he's confident 675 would have gone up. And when I am teaching a certification, one of the things that I just inherently do is I locate the strongest guy in the room and I give him special attention. And I start out by saying the expectation that you should have taking this course is that you will become stronger in the lifts that you prefer or, engage in. So that is one expectation that you should have. And this infinitesimal approach has no boundary, and it is going more and more precise to the limitation. Whereas an outward infinite goal will come up against a finite limit that is not even 2 to 3 orders magnitude bigger, because at some point you can't live more, and the pursuit of which will ultimately break the body. So if we flip it on the script and we pursue the infinitesimal X on the map, that is how we create center of the wheel control, where the more precise and in-depth and drilling to that, like precise, bring it an order of magnitude even more precise and make that the intent. Now we can have a greater effect on the output and a sustainable pursuit. where the life cycle of a human being is, one of growth and building, and then one of deterioration and decline. So I'm on the back half, and I want to live out, the second half with as much jing and power and joy and pain-free as I possibly can have. And so I have found great success personally in this. And our relationship, you guys have, a relatively in-depth understanding of my work. And I think the opportunity with Thomas Myers is to really bridge the stuff that people can't comprehend without sort of pretty extensive input into the Eastern, right? The woo-woo, as someone might call it, without understanding. And there are certainly those who exploit it, not fake. So it just feeds the narrative of, the woo-woo, like these no-touch knockouts that require, a hypnotizing process such that it works. And it actually works because the participant is compliant and hypnotized. So, it really shows the power of belief. And if we can believe in something that is actually true and has a universal application to everybody and then tailored to their own idiosyncrasies, I think that this is the path. This is the path to that unified understanding. And as we're speaking right now, you're walking on a mill, and what are you doing? It's head over foot, right? Head over foot.
Oh yeah, every
So
time.
anybody watching this can clearly see that you are essentially engaged in the every step is a rep approach, and you're feeding the body. So my theory is that if we can eliminate compensatory tension in the body, now bioelectrically, we are able to now start being nutritive in movement. And force now is felt and beneficial to the body, as opposed to having, a grain of sand in the eye that at some point in time will wear you down. And I think that is the best thing for overall health, mental well-being, and sports performance. So that's really the through line of what I work on. And then the we've got several inventions in the queue that are coming out soon, but one of which of particular interest is this ProPulse Power Vest. And basically it's a weight vest that has cartridges in it that have a spring-loaded propulsor. So you have this like springing effect. And why the spring is essential for this is you cannot move your center of mass downward any faster than gravity will take you down. So the hands and the feet can move faster than gravity to elicit jolts of force through that connective tissue fascial recoil. But when we start dealing with the center of mass, we need a tool that can keep up with us and provide that millisecond force that disappears. And with this one, it's 12 and a half pounds with 20 of these cartridges in it. And when you load it, it'll literally bounce higher than where it started. So you create this plyometric training stimulus that's never been had before. And the reason why the fastest sprinters in the world do not wear weight vests to sprint is because the inertia of that weight becomes a burden that interrupts the timing and the positioning. So they will get stronger, but they will not get faster. And now you're doing reps that are close but no cigar to what you're actually going to be doing. So you can start to interrupt the coordination of the activity to actually impair performance. So, if you know what you're doing, you're not putting weight vests on sprinters. Like I'm talking the fastest sprinters in the world. But this one now, you're getting a training effect that's building the tissues exactly as you want them. So power is the 100% goal, and that's the stimulus. And you're able to get into that top form, that fifth gear that field athletes never even get to, riding it high and getting the form. And you take this thing off, and there's that muscle memory effect of, oh my God. And the comment that I get, I had a NFL guy in here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I was training his kids. And he put on the vest and he's like, holy shit, I feel lighter. And he's like, my knee doesn't hurt. So if we can send the force fast, that doesn't it doesn't require and it doesn't elicit a muscular elongation and contraction as much as it is a pulse of force, where the hydraulic muscle belly is just the buttress, the internal wave that is wrapped in the fascia from the cellular level, the sarcomere, the actin and myosin. So there's that. It's a unique product that in athletics an advantage becomes a necessity. And because this one is a zero learning curve product, we do what you do, it does what it does, you're faster, okay, bang. And the very first vest I sent to Otto Bolden, who is himself a Hall of Fame sprinter from Trinidad, and he happens to be the announcer for speed. So if it's an Olympic event or a world championship event, odds are Otto Bolden is announcing. He's like the Joe Rogan. As Joe Rogan is to MMA, Otto Bolden is to track and field. And I have a great relationship with Otto because he's one of those guys who's confident, and so therefore he doesn't engage in the reflexive rejection. He's willing to entertain what may be next. And so he just texted me today, said, I received the vest, but I'm on the road, so next week I will be there. I said, good, feel it, and then let's set up a call. And, he's the Pope who, he puts the blessing on that. And now all the sub 10 guys who he's got on speed dial, okay, boom, spoke it out. Let's break 958. And now let's use that to help inspire everybody, the regular Joes and Janes, to make every step stronger. So now to bring it to the conversation that I think we should have today, the muscular contraction, that is the first step or stage in the capacity of a muscle to engage and break the barrier between the actin and myosin is calcium, the calcium ion. So we're talking bioelectrics the instant we say ionization, right? And a crystalline structure that is defined by, there's not like a solid core in it. There's a lattice matrix structure. When it encounters mechanical force, it emits a current, or a piezo or piezoelectric charge is generated. And everybody has the theory that calcium is stored in the bones. And if we send an astronaut out of Earth's gravitational range, they have to do resistance exercise. Otherwise, the bones deossify and deteriorate. And coming back down to planet Earth, they're going to break their femur just, stepping down steps kind of a thing if you stayed up long enough. So I think that we really have to understand that, okay, can the mechanical stress that is clean, so the lattice work of the fascia and the lattice work of the bone structure is not building sort of an aberrant protective patterning because of restriction and inefficiency. You're now building the architecture. They say like 7 years from now, you're 100% new cells, right? The whole thing's been replenished. And if we can lay down the lattice work of clean force, I think we're able to build the bone architecture and the fascial matrix that sort of it's suspended within to an optimal that I believe will lead to the next breakthroughs in athletic performance, longevity, and ultimately use that to inspire people to treat every step as a rep and get it aligned so that we, flip the 80-20 back pain situation to maybe a 20-80 back pain situation. So talking skeleton, and the inroad for me with the skeleton was the core fist. So that simple arrangement of the digits of the hand exactly allows us to now triangulate, right? A crystalline matrix is strong if it's a triangle, but it's not strong if it doesn't have a longitudinal axis to transfer force. So the balled up fist, which is vital for holding on to something, right? If I'm going to show up to the fight long time ago, I'm going to have a stick. I'm not fighting empty-handed, in the civilized, gentlemanly world that we're in now, where we can have sport fighting. So empty hand meant nothing back in those times. So where's the incentive to find optimal with it if it's not practical in application? So in the nerfed world where, we just have the social agreement that we're not going to engage in warfare, just, bang. That gives us the luxury to really cultivate and civilize and sophisticate. And I call it soft fist educate. We're working with a bare knuckle fighter right now who just left the lab, and he's now learning this. He broke his hand in the last fight. So he's now learning this. And my instruction for him today at this stage was, okay, form it and don't put any tension into it. Just let the bone structure be there and feel what you have. And it's that skeletal integrity, and the skeleton is already hard. So you don't have to do anything to have your bones be as hard as they are right now in the air and as hard as they are right now breaking his jaw. So structure, and that, as you guys know, the core fist led to this discovery that I can flip the equation of distal tension as a restrictor and a limiter to now create a skeletal circuit where distal tension can actually be a proximal facilitator for more fluidity and force transmission, because I'm creating a circuit through the bone structure. That's what helped me discover the double down pulse, because suddenly I was integrated, that moment. And that's what and that's Deion Sanders. Oh, that's Randy Moss. And, when you're aware of it, suddenly you see it hiding in plain sight that you just didn't notice yesterday. And that really led me down the track of bone structure and then hardening my bones with, I don't know, millions, probably at least a million and probably millions of impact force through integral bone architecture that made me extremely like my arm. If you kick me in the shins, I'm going to cry, but you hit my arms, you're in trouble, not me. So that lattice work of my bone structure has been hardened and densified, and the nerves don't care anymore. So that's the sort of the sticky hands. Like in certain martial arts, there's this concept of sticking, where you adhere and follow, and once contact is made, you don't break the contact, because now you cannot be fooled by teleception. Like if we're apart and I flinch, well, I'm doing that to get a reaction, so that now I'm going to exploit your reaction to the feint. Whereas if I'm touching you, there is no more feinting. Okay, I feel it as it's happening now, as opposed to, some delay in reaction and sort of trying to interpret where this thing's going to come. And like water, which is fluid, the initial contact is rock solid. So the sticky hands, as they say, meaning to stick and adhere and join and don't remove the contact. The first contact is stick hands. So it's going to hit with a massive impact that's going to distract you for my next exploitation, becomes instantly soft and sensitive. So that's and last thing I'll say for right now is that athletic inadequacy is really my superpower, because it gives me more motivation than the big train, right? Little train ain't gonna ever quit. Ain't the size of the dog in the fight, size of the fight in the dog. But I'm athletic enough to understand and feel what is worth pursuing and not, and to now test it against a better man and come out victorious in that little, whatever the encounter is defined as, so as to minimize damage, but to determine who's better. Okay, it works. And then you put it into the guy who's better, and now he knows the trick, and now you're back to he's better than you, right? So that's really sort of the formula with which I work. And I think we need to, as the professionals who are pioneering the next generation of thought leaders, which is us, I think we really have to bring the skeleton into the conversation. and not just this, oh, well, you need this here, that. No. It's the fluid change, right? It's the movement and the and continuity of every bone in the body. And that appreciation, I think, will glean insight into the whole thing. And we get everybody on target to productive, not protective. And then we eliminate the end goal is to eliminate hate, where people can be supportive of one another as opposed to, oh, well, my master's better than yours, and the Pavlov press is great because, I sat in a lecture for 2 hours, sat in a chair, didn't get up, and, they did 19 soccer players who did that and this, and so therefore we know without a shadow of a doubt because it's peer-reviewed. All right, let's just end that cycle so that they can step out of the bucket of crabs that they find themselves in, trying to pull everybody in, because ultimately that's the inferiority complex that they're not able to handle. And I think any man worth his seed probably goes through an asshole phase, right? So you go through your asshole phase because you're competitive and you don't want to lose. And, ultimately it's me, not you, right? One slice of bread, that's mine. And I think we can sort of come to this enlightenment, where we have a physical reality that cannot be denied. So Hunter Biden, okay, whatever, right? Fuck you, right? You said 100 push-ups and you did 3, so fuck you, right? And then everybody can say fuck you and then help him do 100 for real, as opposed to, just bullshitting with eyes wide shut. So anyway.
Well, I have a peer-reviewed paper that says you're never going to get rid of the haters. So it's
really,
it's the way it is. Yeah. Let's get back to the gravy here. You were giving us so much there that I want to get back to the piezoelectric effect. So I'm going to summarize this in 30 seconds. Basically, bones are made of crystals. Certain crystals, quartz, for instance, holds a charge just from its structure, and basically pressure and temperature. It is a way to release energy from the potential of the crystal in which bone is made of, right? So
what I would say let me just jump in on that, because I don't know that it holds a charge. I think you can think of it more as an antenna that with mechanical stress, it becomes the conduit of charge. So
I should have said potential. It holds potential energy when it's compressed in the way that the body, you step, you compress. It gives you an automatic charge of energy just from the rebound. Now, you were mentioning that you can amplify this by changing the structure of your bone, and I'm thinking that is by movement. So is that the process? Is maybe not hitting the ground, but moving properly going to change the structure of your bones, which is going to allow you to keep the electric effect into older age? And we're missing this conversation. Is that a basic summary of what?
Yeah, here's how I would say it is, if we want to optimize the fascial integration and harness that ubiquitous, separator, surrounder of all things, then we need clean force transmission where it's fluid and there's no restriction to the fundamental load, that land load launch effect. So there's nothing compensatory that gets tension stuck in the system. And in order to accomplish that, one must understand the bone structure and how they play together. And if the bone architecture is not playing nice, there's nothing that the fascial structure can do but to protect you from that inefficiency and lay down aberrant, material to try to buttress the weak link, as it were. So putting a clean force through a system, right? Balancing the car tires so that it wears nicely. It doesn't sort of be out of balance where you're going to wear quickly in one spot. I think that's essential. And then understanding that the maximum range of motion does not necessarily constitute the maximum range of rotation unless you are resolving to a spiral. And so if I want to reach up and touch as high as I possibly can, internally I'm not as long as I can because I'm trying to execute some, external objective. Whereas if you understand sort of the circuitry where you're funneling to a position of fundamental strength, and then the directional intent of a spiral that has a definitive specific center that you are spooling around, now internally I'm creating that maximum range of rotation that will now remove all slack from the system, such that every individual muscle cell is in a situation where, that side goes, this side goes, as opposed to sort of slack where that goes and then that goes. And there you have the trauma of sort of the misgearing, that it's not fully lengthened. And now that practice makes all of your body weight have a continuity where it happens somewhere and it transmits instantly without delay and without pain, ultimately. And then that will yield a greater range of motion should I direct that task externally.
So just to summarize there, the understanding is that you position your bones, let's say with the core fist, what you were showing there, you position your bones as to wring out the fascia so that it transmits force into the bones properly and efficiently, because it's taut, including the musculature, and that will allow the bones to reorient themselves in structure.
Yes, I think reorient, even if we're not thinking position, I think reorient structure. So that if we have that force where everything is doing its part in proportion to how it enhances the whole, well, now that's the force that's being applied through the system. And that's how your bone is going to model. And and the fascia is going to model. And, the structure will model. So structure dictates function, but function transforms over time structure. So, we are bipedal, but if all you did was hop on one leg, eventually, the structure would be morphing toward that stimulus and stress. And then that would morph to the point where now you can't do that other function because the structure over time has been manipulated toward that function. So if we can set up the fundamentals of like balanced locomotion and that fluidity, now I'm not experiencing just, imperceptible inefficiencies that add up over time. And I think the more that the tip of the spear professionals, the ones who, they're the principal earner, they have a lifelong learning objective, and they test and vet everything personally. I think that's the important audience to inform, which is why I like your podcast so much. So that we can be the guides and essentially teach trainers that the tool is the teacher. We are just the guide informing intent, so that person can instantly feel the reality, as opposed to sit in a fucking folding chair for 2 hours looking at a goddamn PowerPoint with reference to all these names that are fucking, Soviet or Romanian, and tell me that the book is, so dense and thick that, okay, well, what the fuck? I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, that's information that's very useful, built on a structure that has integrity. It has nothing to do with enhancing the way that you actually move. And I can't tell you what to do without some, gap in translation. But if I hand you a rope and I show you the pattern that you want to cultivate, well, okay, I can see if you're getting it or not, and you can feel and see if you're getting it or not. And once you get it, you got it. Okay, great. Now we're on the same page, and we're making progress that can be leveraged out so that everybody does it. Ultimately, my goal is that we don't need fitness professionals, because it's just people see people do, and good movement is normalized. And now, okay, I have so much more joy and energy fundamentally from the body moving like a tiger, that I don't have the problems that present with no reason. And it's just okay. It's just normalized. And this is where, Thomas Myers, one of the things I really enjoy about Thomas Myers is I come from a liberal arts background, as does he. And he's steeped in it deeper than I am, but I can hang with him in terms of the Shakespearean references and all that stuff. So we have a lot of fun with the banter back and forth, and we're both lifelong learners who are so like different from others that we don't care that we don't fit into the normal society, because this is our passion. This is what we like to do. And Tom has a colleague out here who he stays with when he's out here in San Diego, and his name's Dave Kennedy. And this guy, Dave Kennedy, is like one of my new best friends. The guy is so smart and so well-read and so experienced and knows so many stories that, like, we were talking on the phone right before this, and he's like, hey, listen, call me back later this afternoon, because I just purchased this book here on the triple energizer. That's the Sanjiao, or the triple warmer in Chinese medicine. And I mean, look at the thickness of this book. And this is my second book dedicated to this organ system, which is the only imaginary organ system in the 12 meridian system. And it happens to be the fourth finger. And fourth finger intent, and biomechanically, since you can't flip the fourth finger the way you can the bird, this here, that intent of extension through the middle, it leads me astray. Like, it doesn't funnel in. It just takes me off. But if I do it with the fourth finger and I'm doing the intent, there's a funneling effect that comes back to my center. And that's just Western anatomical.
Okay. Can you hit us with a little more gravy on that book? Like you said, you read another one.
Yes.
And you're giving us the end of the line, the fingers. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe it comes from the center. And
I know that neither of us are super well versed on the 12 meridian system. We don't have a background. And so could we do maybe even a crash course in the perspective that's offered from Chinese medicine and how that's informed your perspective on Western influence of biomechanics?
All right, perfect. So the meridian system is a 24-hour clock beginning at 3 a.m. with the lung meridian. So think of just common sense. If you're going to begin with an organ system, inspiration is what gets it going and keeps it going. So the lung meridian is first. And they have each meridian that corresponds to an organ that is either yin or yang. And you guys keep it in the rails if it's getting a little complex.
No, keep it going.
Try to make it as make sense to the uninformed as much as possible. So the internal aspect of the meridian will be that there's a continuity of organ to organ that has an internal path and then an external sort of handing off in the relay race that gets you from the lungs to the liver. So the very first meridian is the lungs, and that starts and begins in the stomach. That's interesting. What do we have to do every day, or every other third day, right? You got to eat. We can only assimilate that which we consume to build ourselves, right? So we're not this, perpetual energy machine. We're the thing that has to process energy and go. And the stomach is ultimately the great motivator, right? The key to a man's heart is through his stomach. And, you want to make somebody focused and hyper-focused, starve them. Give them the opportunity to get food. You'll learn how to be patient, right? So the lung starts on the chest right here. It comes up and then it comes out to the thumb. So the lung comes out to the thumb. And I like to think in terms of the lung, long. So you can sort of take, in Chinese, the same word, depending upon intonation and sort of the context, it could mean 300 different things. So I like to sort of play with the words even too, because what I want the lung to be this long outward yin force. And then the large intestine on the index finger is next, and that comes up and then has continuity. It comes up and has continuity right to this point, which is its end point, that spirals across the midline. And so now we have, just thinking in terms of core, we have the inspiration, And then we have the floor of the core, which is the colon, the large intestine. And if you think just Western anatomy, we're essentially a tube enveloped in tubes that, comes in here and goes out there. Fundamental. So now we have the first 2 meridians. All right. Now from here, the large intestine, now comes the stomach. All right. So feed the stomach. The stomach comes down here and then comes down the body, comes down the front of the body, and it comes down through the second toe. Then comes the spleen, which comes up through the big toe. So we have sort of this lateral outward, medial inward. So that's a theme for the meridians, coming down lateral, coming up medial, right? So if you think about the energetics even of what we want the wellspring coming up the middle and the distribution coming out and delivering to the outside. And then come up the middle, come out the outside. So then the spleen is going to come up to the chest, and the next one is the heart. And the heart, the external, begins in the armpit, and it comes out to the pinky finger here. And then the next one after the heart coming out is the small intestine, which is just the other side of the pinky. That's the yin side, that's the yang side. And so now the small intestine is going to come up to the face, and the next one is the bladder. And the bladder is this thing that just like comes up from right in the eye. It comes down around the head, comes down the back, routes to the knee, and then does another pass down the back a little bit more laterally. And then it comes down the legs, and it sort of envelops and comes out the pinky toe. Again, we're coming down with this outward enveloping of that bladder. And then it comes from the pinky toe up to the kidney, which is the only meridian that's not on a phalange, not on a toe. It's actually right here. And they call that the bubbling well. And the kidney is the fundamental yin. It is the thing that is feeding the system and creating the capacity for structure. So that's the kidney meridian. Kidney meridian comes up from this bubbling well, comes up to the inside of the foot and does like a loop. So it's sort of this, it comes up, does a loop, and then it comes up the shin, point 1 to point 10 on the shin. And if anyone's followed my work, there was 1, 10, shin, right? The connection of the foot to the knee. And then it comes up to the chest in here. All right, so that's the kidney. Next one is the pericardium, that which houses the heart. I call the heart the king, and the pericardium is the castle. And the pericardium comes from the chest out to the tip of the middle finger. All the other meridians come to, that cuticle area at the side of the fingernail. The pericardium, which corresponds to the kidney, comes to the point of the middle finger. And point 9 is the end of it. And then point 8 is here. Classical point 8 is here, and modern point 8 is here. So when you snap your finger, you're going to modern point 8. And when you get in that internal core fist, you're going to that classical, where I can pin it in and create that skeletal circuit that gives me maximum tension equals maximal proximal fluidity. So flipping the script. So from the pericardium, now we get to the triple warmer, the imaginary organ. It's the assimilation of sort of the gas, the fluid, the solid, the fundamentals of the whole structure being assimilated with the trinity of gas, water, solid. And that comes up the fourth finger, and it comes up the fourth finger and sort of like right on the, routes right on the back of the arm. And that's going to come up to the face, and then it goes to the gallbladder. And the gallbladder does this like San Diego Chargers like helmet thing, and then comes down the lateral. It sort of tic-tacs from medial to lateral to medial. Gallbladder 30 is right on sort of the dimple of the glute where I want to put my funny bone when I'm doing a coil. And then that comes out the fourth toe, gallbladder. So again, another theme of coming down the outside, coming up the inside, because after gallbladder comes liver. And you can think of liver is filtering and delivering the pure blood, right? So the liver is like the waste management system that makes sure that you're getting good blood throughout the body. And the liver comes up the big toe. So spleen comes up and liver comes up big toe. And the liver comes up to the torso, like right here, and then you're back to lung. So that's the cycle of the meridians. And what I did through the years, especially with the facilitation of apps on the iPad, I took these maps from apps that showed you like they had the lines drawn on the body, and then they sent like a energetic pulse through the meridians, and I could edit it so that, okay, I've got all 12, and then put it at a speed that sort of was appropriate for me to follow. And I would do a meridian meditation all the time. And what happens is that yields this sort of energetic flow through the body that is congruent with the way the gait mechanics want to come to the outside to the inside, right? The way that your body will go from internal torsion to external torsion, internal torsion, external torsion. And I would always practice it bilaterally at first, and then you can start to play with it unilaterally as you become more familiar with it. And that map system provides this, if you can identify and sort of feel the sensation of with your breath, the flow of the energetics, it is congruent with what you want to do biomechanically just from a mechanistic standpoint. So it sort of informs and fills in the structure with the energetics of it.
That's what I was going to ask. If that felt sensation of the flow of energy, you were translating that to the felt sensation of how you flowed energy in your movement practice, if you were trying to kind of emulate and create parallels with that.
100%. Like that, it is a 100% perfect layer and alignment with what we want to do biomechanically. The energetics are one for one with what I'll call the optimal biomechanics. And especially the bladder. Like the bladder meridian just gives you this like down the back, and like we'll take another path down the back, and then we're going to scoop out the pinky toe, so that the pinky toe going outward and then bringing it up the center. So you get this, and your deadlift will go up if you know the bladder.
Why do you think the bladder has such a long energetic pathway compared to the other organs?
Well, the bladder is, I guess, the elimination of the processed fluids, right? And it directs to the kidney. So whatever fluid, I guess, isn't impure with too much uric acid or whatever, is the case, then the kidney's going to draw up the energetics to bring the fluid back up the body. So it's sort of the fluid elimination of impure to now the fluid rising in the body. And then if you wanted to concentrate just into the spine, there's something called craniosacral therapy that relates to when we go horizontal and sleep, there's like a washing of that cerebrospinal fluid within the spine and the brain itself. So there's a continuity and fluid exchange between, the internal aspect of the spine with the brain. And I don't know that it's fully understood, but this, it's a very real therapeutic when someone really knows how to open up that connection of the spine with the brain. So we are the fluid medium. We're mostly water, I guess. And so perhaps that bladder, and particularly with the bladder, it's like the lower back. Like you feel, in Chinese, they call it the Ming Men. And it's sort of that lumbodorsal fascia, that diamond down at the bottom, that like when you can press outward with that, you can stack the bones and create a hinge at the hip where the femur, like let's say that's the acetabulum and this is the femur connection. You can flatten the lumbar curve with that bladder and create like a little pivot in that joint. So that's why sprinters and in fifth gear have to, they tilt under just a little bit, right? They have to run tall at that top speed, which now gives me a slight mechanical advantage of the femur and the pelvis. So, and just like in terms of, we play a game called Push Hands here in the lab, where it's an athletic version of Push Hands because it's not like super soft. We still want to have fun, and it creates no damage because you're not wrestling and grabbing and holding. So it's basically trying to take someone's balance with skillful manipulation of my mass against yours, and the whole way to be good at it is to not overcommit and sort of present yourself in a manner where I can interpret where your intention and tensions are, and I can make slight adjustments that you can't even sense. So you're not connected to my center. I can deflect you. And as soon as you commit to something, I can just take you. And Chris Chamberlain, Eroding Weakness, anybody who doesn't know Eroding Weakness on Instagram, get on there and you're going to see a pound for pound world class across any strength feat you want to test. And when he came into the lab, it's going on like 5 years now, I think, I could push him around like a child. And he's a lot stronger than me. He's younger than me. He's faster than me. He's better than me. But because I knew the trick, I knew the game, I could literally just like move him around. And by playing the game and teaching him, now he is like almost, he's so robust in his capacity to root and deliver, which has helped him in his strength application, but it's helped him in the real-time exchange of, that guy wants to kick my ass. Well, okay, now he might not be able to do that, whereas yesterday he could. Because if you can always control your own balance and never have that compromise, and then take the balance of another person, I mean, if I could beat you up, I could beat you up. And I'll play sports against you better too. So it's the ability to do this very complex, spin the basketball on the finger kind of strength, where it's the skill of the strength that makes it come off. And as soon as you're not coordinated to this infinitely complex, just in the moment differential of martial, to be good at that takes a long time, and it takes sincerity. So what the old idiom in the Eastern internal arts was, if you don't route to effective martial, your training lacks sincerity, because it can't work when it truly counts. When someone's trying to stop air and blood getting to here. And Will, your pursuit of boxing is a joy to watch, because you can see the joy in your entire system doing it, and you're developing legitimate skills in the sweet science. So you've tapped into routing force to the ground through the manipulation of sticks and ropes, such that now you're funneling that into the discipline of boxing, where you're always balanced and you're always like, you're hitting me with the floor and you're never disconnected from the floor. So the sweet science is so wonderful because it's 4 punches, and that attenuation and limitation creates a sweet science that for me is more interesting to watch than a wider scope, which is the MMA. So if you like I'd rather watch a great boxing match than a great MMA fight, just because I love watching that game. I love it.
I really like what you said about basically the ropes, the sticks, and boxing. I still can't articulate the connection, and maybe I don't even have the words for it, but I understand when I move, especially with the rope, I understand exactly how it translates. It is a translation into many other things other than rope, sticks, and boxing, into general movement. When I run through the forest, I'm much more balanced, right? So it is about balance as well. And your new position is always your next balance point. So you always have to have a next move. And so I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Let me sort of expand on that. So if you take a cat and you throw the cat up, the cat is not out of balance, because internally the cat is integrated. It's going to find, itself. It's going to external torsion and then internal torsion and find the floor and land in balance. So even though it looks like it's out of balance, it is not out of balance. It is still in total control of its body, such that the next encounter, which you're talking about, everything is in the correct position and timing to come out of that. Whereas if you throw a dog up in the air, I mean, then, it's a panic and a thing, and there's no, it's not seeking a solution. It's trying to protect itself. It doesn't know where it is. So it's out of balance. So, and a cat, you have cats that are soul hunters. You don't have dogs that are soul hunters, right? A dog is a pack animal, and it wins with teamwork. It's not a tiger or a leopard that has no one else to rely upon. So that attenuation and the need to be this, nomadic, solitary creature, you're responsible for your next meal. So that means you can take fewer risks. A lion will jump on the back of a Cape buffalo and get speared, in the leg and have to limp around for 3 weeks whilst, the pride keeps the dream alive by, catching the prey. And that internal balance, we human beings, we can experience the same exact thing, where what we do in the air and what we do with the upper body is what always positions us to be there when we get there. So that we're arranging and manipulating our body such that when we have that next opportunity to land, load, launch, we're doing that clean. And there's not this momentary protective compensatory tension that is not producing furtherment to the output or objective. It's just protecting your structure by the very need of the nervous system to do that. So it's always on guard. And if we can now give the guard a break and say, hey, guard, come on over here and help us dig the hole, or come on over here and help us build the structure. Now you're not wasting that input of the thing, like, I can't help you right now. I'm covering for your inefficiency. And so in boxing, timing and positioning is everything. And in boxing, if you're not dancing to my beat, well, then I want to break and reset, right? Mm-hmm. If I don't know who's dancing, well, then either we both suck or I suck. So, and the advantage, the advantage of RopeFlow versus jumping rope is that RopeFlow is on the beat. It is the totality of your system going down and coming up. And jumping rope is a syncopation on beat. As the hands and body come down, the feet come up. And they are both invaluable to the boxer but I would say that the priority would be finding the beat before you go trying to syncopate something that you don't even know. And athletically speaking, in a court sport or a field sport or whatever, beat is the thing that's valuable. The syncopated, your center mass not really going anywhere when you float like that butterfly. So what good are you, right? So the ability to load and move the body is the more valuable aspect. And if you look at the boxers, they don't just jump. They turn the rope around them and hit jumps. And the jump is that, like, okay, boom, 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 float like a butterfly, stay on my toes, right? I can change the base without changing the center. Like I can put myself here, but I'm not going anywhere. Whereas if you understand beat, every rep is rotation. With RopeFlow, you have no choice. You have to rotate the system, whereas you can get sagittalitis from just jumping a rope for an hour and doing nothing else. And if you look at the precious little footage that exists out there for training of Sugar Ray Robinson, he did 90+% rope around the body, 10% or less jump through the rope. Because I think he knew something that felt right. And I think when there was less distraction and fewer sports, there was more intense study of the sweet science, because it's the fastest man in the world and the heavyweight champ. Those are that's king, right? They are the two kings of sport. Baddest man on the planet, fastest man on the planet. Now we have ball sports where you can make, a lot of money that pulls the athletic talent in that direction. And you're not, if you're playing basketball, you're not getting the damage of being a fighter. And there's more people in the population who can fight well than there are who can sprint well. So sprinting is a very rarefied skill set that can only genetically, there's a small group of people who can even play at that level. But fighting, styles make fights. So you can draw from, and you got weight classes. So, you play football, I don't care, you weigh 140 pounds, there's no place for you. Maybe you can kick the ball, but you sure as shit ain't going to play on the field, offense or defense, because you're just not sized right. And I think the fight also represents a lifelong endeavor that you can do it forever. You can visualize it and do it so that you're always making improvement in your economy and efficiency, and especially on the decline in your prowess, just physical, the jing, and the youth and vitality. You can really lead a wonderful life training fight without actually ever doing it. And so you take no damage, but you move super well. That if you were to spar is not fight. Spar is, I'm working on this, you're working on that. We have a social agreement here that I'm not going to exploit it and hurt you, right? That's like the true definition.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to fight when I'm going to get paid. I don't want to fight, And now there is go through the fire and spar hard, right? And let's amp this up and see who's going to knock each other. That's a part of it. Because it's hard to jump in a fire if you never experience fire, right? And we need to know that you can take a punch and learn how to do it. And the only way is a true stimulus coming at you. But for regular people, you never need to take damage. You never need to take damage. If you're just a regular person, you got a job or whatever. But if your training has the discipline to that finite X on the map, then what better foundation to build upon than flight and fight? And they both feed each other. So that's what you're experiencing with the ropes. Is the stick is a feedback mechanism that always is truthful, and it's self-evident what you can do just by looking at the stick. And the stick is broken continuity in the sense that there are changes where you release and then gather. Changes where you release and gather. And the lack of fluidity of the tool attenuates pathways that don't have leeway the way that a rope does.
It's much harder. Stick twirling, but bow staff is way harder than rope, in my opinion. Way
harder, and the cost for failure is you need a new TV, or you got a big golf ball in your head or whatever.
I smoked myself. So
and it's inevitable when you start to gain some proficiency. It's fun to make that stick go fast.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes there's a price to pay, and the rope has the advantage that unless you're doing releases because you're so good, you're always tethered from right and left, always. And that's why I call it the Rosetta Stone, because facility with the rope through 4 fundamental patterns will provide a foundation that will allow you to assimilate any and all things faster and put you on a greater trajectory to proficiency in all things. And all it takes is muscle memory, that subconscious competence with the rope, and now you are wireless.
So this is
always know where you are.
If I can just like make a quick thing about my takeaway from this conversation, one of the things that I really gathered that from this talk is that the core of your practice and the core of your method is developing a perceptual and practical understanding of how energy flows and how energy transfers through the body. And I experienced that firsthand because my own introduction to efficient locomotion, for example, was Will teaching me the figure 8 underhand pattern and explaining that this is the figure 8 that happens in locomotion. And so I did this figure 8 pattern and I'm like, oh, I feel this like smooth transfer from one arch of the foot to the other. And it's almost like it's passing back and forth. And that was my first understanding of how, if you know how energy moves and transfers fluidly and efficiently, and you start to develop that, again, internal awareness and that practical application of that awareness, that's how it's going to manifest in your biomechanics. And Will, I mean, you talk about harnessing energy all the time. You talk about being able to understand how tissues load and release and having that elastic recoil, but also the efficient flow through these lines of tension, and like how we were talking about the piezoelectric effect as it pertains to proper skeletal structure. That's an awareness of how energy is going to flow through that structure, and then how that energy flows through your structure informs your structure to adapt over time. Your practice at its core is understanding the flow of energy, not just conceptually, as you said, not sitting in a chair and looking at a PowerPoint presentation of like, this is how energy transfers, but actually getting up and feeling it and developing that proprioceptive awareness of not just where your body is in space, but how it is relating to and flowing with energy.
Awesome way to sum it up. Think of math is music, music is math, and beautiful movement is musical and mathematical. And Will, you've graduated to the point with your flow that now you're able to now punctuate the flow at the appropriate where and when. And that translates to running the trail, and it translates to getting in a fight. Because if you're never disintegrated and you can punctuate, meaning like concentrated to hear when and where and when the opportunity presents, and you're hitting them with the floor. Like you are literally delivering and drawing the force from the floor and transmitting it into another person. And the more you can concentrate that, the more you penetrate and create damage in the game.
Well, it's very interesting because basically the more I do different routines, so like bow staff, club bells, mace bells, they start informing each other even more. It's like a compounding effect. I go back to slip bag, Tyson's slip bag, and I can do maneuvers that my body's doing automatically. I'm like, well, yesterday I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I was doing something new and my body just accepted it, right? Like, very difficult.
Well, maybe Will, your body found it because it had already found it antecedent with these teachers. The fundamental tools are the fundamental teachers. And so now it's residing in you and you're just directing it to a new objective, but you already have the underlying integration and talent that's been cultivated that you can make discoveries in the moment because your body figured it out.
Yeah, and I think intent has a lot to do with it, or the most, because I was thinking about this. I'm like, what is actually getting better here? I'm roping, I'm doing all that, and I've watched people are better at roping than me. People are better at mace bells and like every single discipline I do. I see people that are much better, but I don't see people going through all of them. You know what I mean? So like, I'm getting the intent of playing with all these different tools gets me to where I want to go. So the rope is the teacher and I'm the conduit, you know, like,
yes.
I don't know exactly how to sum that up, but basically that's it, right? Like, I'm excited for the future because it keeps going higher and higher. And I'm like, wow, this is surprising to me, you know?
Yes, you're surpassing your own expectations because you're making discoveries in the moment that are appropriate to that moment that otherwise could not be understood for real. You could get it intellectually to some degree, but you couldn't actualize it physically. So therefore, you're removed from true knowledge, right? If I want to study the guitar, I'm going to someone who can play it better than me, right? Because like, what's the point if you're just going to tell me where to put the fingers and you have never, or you're not capable of doing that in real time yourself? Like, if you can't play it, you can't teach it. And that's what I think that, you know, the personal trainer of the future has to be able to orchestrate and conduct themselves in a manner that is ahead of the client in this sustainable, most powerful, fluid, pain-free manner. Otherwise, you're teaching them something else. You know, you okay, I'll put muscle on you, make you look better. All right, that's a dime a dozen, right? That's read a book. But the sophisticated movement, that soft fist educated movement, it knows no end. And if you look at like black belts in jiu-jitsu, there's layers in black belt that are a greater expanse than white belt, blue belt, purple belt, brown belt. There's more variation in black belt than there is in white belt to brown belt, because some people just have the capacity to keep going deeper. And what they're doing is they're reacting to a stimulus without overreacting. So if you picture yourself on a slack line, it's not the first fault or the first adjustment that knocks you off. The first one leads to an overreaction that sends you off. Whereas the cultivated person who has the skill feels that imperfection and then corrects it subtly, where, oh, now I'm back in. I didn't go like this gross movement. And this goes back to Feldenkrais's idea that skillful coordination is as much or more about the inhibiting the wrong than it is doing the right. So part of the problem in playing the guitar is you don't know how to inhibit all that which is wrong, because you can understand relatively quickly what's right, but to execute it is a pruning and paring away of the gross inefficiency that allows you to only do that appropriate movement whilst keeping everything else in the range where it can act appropriate to that, very small detail. So and that, again, going back to this idea of if we pursue infinite, we come up against a boundary that's just, okay, it's finite and it's not very far. But if we pursue this infinitesimal precision, now you're going to manifest a greater output far beyond that which you can get to from a movement and functional standpoint than if you just chase the infinite. And I'm a both sides utilized person. Like, I'm a functional guy. If you can squat 640 and last week you couldn't, and you never were in your life, well, then I think that's a good thing. I think it's a real good thing, because you're doing what you love to do and you're doing it better. It feels better and it's empirically better. All right, good. That's functional training. And I think one of the faults in functional training is this sort of disregarding contempt for strength. It's like, wait a minute, all things equal, stronger is better. Let's get over that and not, let's not clip wings to say, oh, I can touch my toe and move over here. And, oh, yeah. Okay, great. You got no strength. And if you don't have strength, the stronger guy who's inefficient is going to plow right through you. So stronger is better. And balance is the king on the chessboard. Strength is the queen. And all the pieces moving in accord is the global collective coordination toward any particular objective. But balance is the king. Without balance, the game's over. I don't care how strong the queen is. I don't care how coordinated other pieces are. If the king goes down, bang, it's over. And you can think about that chemically, physiologically. If you don't have the right chemistry and balance of all those things in the body, you're dead. Balance.
Will and I had a whole episode where we discussed for over an hour what the definition of strength was. Because he started a conversation recently. I think you saw it. He had these heavy ropes. And he said, is this strength training? I'm trying to pulse. And I was thinking, it's like your vest, for example, would be an amazing implement for Will to put into his movement practice it pertains to increasing strength, because it is dynamically applied strength training that he can do in multiple planes. And Will, I know you generally just have I wouldn't say like a disdain for strength training, but a disinterest in it, right? Like in terms of conventionally applied. Yeah, traditional, like you're not interested in putting a barbell on your back anymore, but you're still strong as hell, right?
I've done it my whole life, like up until maybe 5 years ago, and it's just, I don't have time. Like, it's low in the priority list, very, very low. If I walk by a gym and I see a bar, I might play with it, but I don't want to do it over and over and over again as a scheduled routine. Definitely not.
Oh, and I think what you would find is if your interest suddenly changed and you wanted to squat more, you would be able to draw more intelligent somatic application or input to that activity where you could, with progression, go higher than you otherwise could if that's where you wanted to devote it, as opposed to boxing or running.
Well, I mean, I haven't touched a barbell or even like any form of bilateral strength movement in a long time, but I've been strength training and I've been sprinting, and I picked up a trap bar the other day just to see what I could do. And I think I did like 375 for an explosive, like I was like popping up on my toes for a set of 6 easy. And, strength is an interesting concept because, like you said, that awareness and that ability to create your own interoceptive experience of how you generate force and what your relationship to joint angles are and stuff. Like, I was able to do that because I had such a deep awareness of when my structure is like most sturdy, when my structure is most sound, and how I can, and like even the awareness of how energy transfers. When I'm sprinting, for example, I'm like fucking full tilt, max output, but I'm still trying to be as efficient as possible. That requires so much internal awareness to balance out that like max output with precision of efficiency.
And I can tell you right now that the answer is yes, is you require less warm up and less recovery than you once did to sprint at speed, because you're not sending aberrant forces through the body that now you've got to compensate for. And when Randy Moss said, I don't stretch on game day, he didn't stretch. Deion Sanders, I'm ready. Right now ready, because there is no inefficiency within the body. So I'm not going to put an undue stress on any one part. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm fluid. I'm ready to go. And the strength training benefit of going unilateral, you are going into the depths of tissue and connection that cannot be gained or had with bilateral. Like, you can pack your lat so much deeper on a coil than you can on a bilateral pack. And by going to those depths and connections on both sides, now when you put them together, you have improvement that would have been impossible to get had you not done one side at a time. And that's why one of our coaches squatted 640 for a PR. Because all he did for warm-up was, a few coils and, a little elastic, and then boom, hit a PR bilaterally by virtue of doing the unilateral. And so, and it's just, if you've been there, it's easier to get back there. And if each side is optimized independent on its own, as it were, I mean, the other side's contributing. So this reciprocity, equal and opposite, one side going internal, the other side going external, that's going to get you to the depths of that unilateral that can't be had otherwise. We're essentially handed creatures where we do have biases and favorites for certain activities. In track, you always turn left. In baseball, you always turn left running around the bases. So, I mean, that's what you're specializing in, whether you like it or not. And even in Tai Chi, and this took me a long time to figure out, they have an expression is one of the fundamentals is never 50-50. What are you talking about? The opening form is bilateral. Okay, but your body internally is not 50-50. So you are never 50-50. You're not, right? You have the heart, you have the liver, you have the spleen. You got a lot of stuff that is asymmetrical just on the inside, right? The lobes of your lungs are different, right? So it's the subtlety of change from side to side, and then the capacity in those individual capacities go both maximally and then most subtly, that should you put them together, you have a greater whole by building up the components that make the whole. And that, again, I think human beings are creatures that have certain passions that are not good for you in sort of a step back objective analysis. Like, if I want to be an ultra marathoner, is it good for me to run 100 miles? Like, is that good for me? Is it good for me to be a boxer and get hit in the nose? Is it good for me to play football and hit like this? No, but I love it and I don't care. It's worth the expense, right? Because that's like I'm living my life. So I think that what we want to do is we want to provide people with the greatest foundation that supports the greatest number of things, where each individual can now pursue their passions with greater success and joy and less pain. So it's just a simple approach. And what we say in our certifications is essentially we're going to be doing the same thing over and over and over in different ways, because we always want to route it to X on the map. And then put you on the path to independence, where you can now route it to whatever your unique thing is, and then help guide others to that.
And what is that X on the map for you?
It's balance. It's the fluid fascial transmission of force without restriction to and from the ground. I mean, all you ultimately have is your body's weight. That's it. You got nothing else. That's it. And so if that can operate with zero inefficiency and no compensation, all of you is directed at the task. Okay, that's the X on the map. It's walking with your head over your foot.
Can we talk about, maximum efficiency, no aberrant tension, or take the aberrant tension down as low as possible, okay?
Yes.
And manifesting something visible or something I can easily test is concentric muscle activity somewhere in the body that is inappropriate. That would be aberrant tension, right? So what I view in real life from observations is that a lot of people who squat bilaterally hold that aberrant tension because of the way you have to squat is basically you hold tension to the max, you squat up and down. I rarely see people who squat a lot, even Olympic lifters, when they get out of the sagittal plane, they don't look very good, right? So where is the sweet spot there, and how do you deal with that? I know it's, a single side, but how do you, because earlier you said that, why don't you squat? Or I'm basically saying, how do you marry the two? How do you marry not having aberrant tension with bilateral movement?
The expression that solves the problem is relate to gait. So if you can engage in the movement of your body to shift support without any compensation, that's your baseline. And now each side is capable of operating, independently in terms of which, support it is. And this includes brachiation, and includes swimming. Like, there's that alternating bilateral aspect regardless of the medium. If you can move your body with greatest economy, you can stand still with better balance, and then put both sides together in a manner that is more productive and less damaging. So it begins unilaterally. So that is the departure point, is proficiency on each side, because it doesn't begin bilaterally. Because now you do not have an optimal destination and target on that side. So you are where you are. And so now this player who you're bringing to the game to team up with this player isn't at its fullest capacity. So it is optimize the sides, coiling core training. It's the foundation. And then the understanding of bilateral torsion and understanding there is no such thing as flexion extension in one plane. It doesn't exist, right? It can look like it, but that's not what's actually happening. And so the enveloping of torsion internal and torsion external creates this dance and serpentine arrangement with the gravitational force. So you can think of the atmosphere as fluid. It's just, very viscous and low dense fluid, but the weight of gravity is different at Death Valley than it is on Mount Everest. There's less fluid, less atmosphere that's burdening you down. So if I have that fluidity of change, that's like cutting through it where I'm not just, because that's not congruent with the structure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Anthony, anything to add to that? Oh, I think he's muted.
There he is. You were muted for a second.
Yeah, I was. I just think that in general, I'm of the mind that you can cultivate any skill, but the more you specialize in it, the more price there is to pay. Right. And so when you're asking, like, how do you marry the two? It's like, well, what degree of specialization towards that bilateral tension are you committing yourself to? Because you and I know that, the more that you're deadlifting and squatting bilaterally at the expense of any other unilateral or rotational movement, well, that's what your body is going to start specializing in. If that's the only neural input. Now, I know that you and I have discussed at length the concern about having a really high neural output activity like a heavy squat, and having it potentially lead to you reverting to that as a strategy when things get stressful for your body because you're training your nervous system to handle stress in that environment. That's still something that's interesting to me. But can you train the other strategies as well concurrently? I think you probably could. And again, it's frequency, it's amount of nervous system load. I remember asking Alex Viada. Do you know who Alex Viada is?
No, I don't.
Alex Viada is a crazy interesting dude who I think one day deadlifted 700 pounds in a powerlifting competition, and then the next day ran like a 50 or 100 mile ultra marathon run. And he's like a hybrid athlete. It's his whole shtick.
So he's like oil and water, like mixed and without separating.
Yeah, he's something else. And I asked him, it's like, do you have any concerns about your strength movements impacting your gait? And he's like, look, if you're doing a lot of running and you're doing a lot of running technique work, the amount of steps that you're taking is more volume of repetition versus the couple of reps that you're doing for powerlifting. Now, I still think that there is something to be said for the amount of neural output that you are putting yourself under when you are doing, because intensity, as it's defined in strength sports, is your percentage of your 1 rep max, which is your percentage of neural output to produce the strength to move this weight. And so I do think that, having these high output neural activities will impact your nervous system and will inform your movement to a degree. I just think maybe I'm an optimist, maybe I'm naive, but I think you can concurrently train multiple things at once. And it's the issue is when you over specialize. That's what I'm coming to, because I still do strength movements, I still do gymnastics, and I'm able to I'm not as fluid or as good of a mover as Will is, because I focus more on I sprint forward, I do gymnastics, I do rotational movements, but I'm not doing them dynamically or as expressively as Will is as frequently. And so as a result, I don't have that same access to those fluid dynamic movements. But am I still bouncy? Am I still pain-free? Am I still able to express dynamic multidimensional movement? Absolutely. I'm still doing these bilateral strength movements in a gymnastics context and, sometimes with a trap bar and different things. It's just I'm not overly specializing in these things, so I don't lose my capacity, and I can actually improve my capacity. If I added some more RopeFlow, I'd probably have a lot more fluid movement in other areas as well.
Well, if we unpack that, because I agree with you, if we think in terms of strength as pressure management, Okay, so that's the way I think of strength. Is it's simple. It's pressure management. Can the structure endure the pressure placed upon it by the load or the force? And with that as sort of the working understanding of what strength is, the nervous system is going to cap and have a governor on it that is below a threshold of crisis or emergency, because the nervous system is there to protect you so you can succeed now, but also succeed tomorrow. So the woman who lifts the car off her child can't deadlift 175 pounds, but the nervous system was so excited and the governor was released, whereby, she did the extraordinary strength feat. So under normal circumstances, your neural output will be the cap on that will be fundamentally related to your capacity to manage pressure. So if I engage in the heavy bilateral, which is how I can put the greatest pressure on the body, now I'm managing a pressure that gives my nervous system more room of safety to now be capable of conjuring and directing that neural intent. So I believe that, like, especially very safe regulated squats, like if you're doing a quarter squat as a sprinter and you're loading 600 pounds on it and you're doing that, and you've maintained your flexibility and joint range of motion, you just put your body under a tremendous amount of stress from pressure that's going to take your capacity for the nervous system to now, okay, room, I'm not afraid of it, subcortically, right? You could think you're not afraid, but your body is. So I think that if we unpack it and understand it, or stand under it to see it from that perspective, I think it makes perfect sense that it is a both sides utilized approach. And by using things like a trap bar, you're being friendlier on your system to manage more pressure without the expense of specialization to a barbell or a bar itself, which imposes certain structural realities on your body that makes it more difficult to handle pressure. It tends to localize it more in the back, as opposed to the trap bar, especially positioned to a height that's appropriate for your objective. I think it's one of the best exercises in the world because you manage more pressure. You're just fundamentally stronger. And then you couple that with the functional stuff. Now, where you would run into, okay, you're going to do this or that, would be energy systems, metabolics involved in it, and just the modeling of tissue. So if this guy who can, lift 700 and then go run 100, he would, if he wanted to specialize in either one, it would be at the expense to some degree of the other. Otherwise, maintaining that dual capacity is going to balance the seesaw, as opposed to if he wanted to go higher in one, he'd have to drop, at least the input on the other. But, so you are right that over specialization will come at the expense of something else, right? But you can go so far with both capacities that feed each other, that what you're talking about, the specialization, that doesn't need to become a problem from the baseline training approach.
There's a million questions off that. Like I literally we can go 10 hours for this easily, right? But I wanted to address a couple straw men or arguments against some of your movements, I guess I've heard. We'll start with head over foot. A lot of people say your head's too far over your foot, you're out of balance, or it's not safe or efficient to train in that way, to be so coiled over as to put the spine in that position. It's not safe to do that, and there's going to be repercussions afterwards, compensations. We'll start with that one. What would you say to that?
Okay. So basically what what we're doing with Weckmethod and coiling core training is we are thinking we want to optimize the length on one side and optimize the strength of a destination where it's fundamental coiled strength. So it's about optimizing the length and optimizing the strength to take all slack out and achieve a position of fundamental strength where when I drop into a coil, I could support a weight that I'm funneling into the hips and doing it where I could support more weight in that fundamental position than I could like on my back bilaterally. All right, so I'm funneling it to a position of strength. And as soon as that force would overwhelm my structure, I'm integrated in a manner that I could just change it and let it go. So if you want to talk about the ultimate safety and security, it is understanding and actualizing those polarities of length and strength that gives me the broadest capacity along the arc through the middle and the connection or the change of side to side. And it is only by exaggerating and then ultimately exaggerating through the intent and the spiraling to the infinitesimal that can yield the greatest the distal proximal relationship where the distal is feeding the proximal. And so you're getting more range and getting more funneling it to your body's center when you do this coiling core approach. And I feel sorry for anyone who's a critic of head over foot because that's being like the Fosbury flop doesn't work best in the high jump. So at some point, they're going to have to pay the piper and come to the realization or come to the, just admit it to themselves and others that, okay, I was wrong with this. Oh, I got to keep my head here or I can't go too much. It's a three-dimensional movement that evolutionary is where we come from. That Piscean side bend and then the spinal engine of distribution, economy of, I just move forward without using a single ounce of energy versus, that I used a lot of energy. So from a structural standpoint, I believe that they're fundamentally wrong because if I can distribute the movement and the force with every single part doing its proportionate role to the task at hand, that's what I want to do with my body and with movement. And if it's been hammered into my head since forever that kind of grace and big cap movement is just wrong because, they didn't understand the path to actually doing it. And if you try to, paint the picture from the outside in, well, yeah, you probably are going to hurt yourself. But if you know the ropes, well, then there's no problem passing it from side to side. So that would be my response there.
Can I play devil's advocate on that one?
No, please do. Let's drill into it.
So devil's advocate would be, well, yeah, you do see head over foot. If I observe, I see head over foot. But it's the consequence of having natural stability in your midline, in your core, whatever you want to call it. And if you start harnessing and working the, I guess you could say the spinal engine or the coil, you're going to interfere with your natural mechanics. What would you say to that?
I mean, I'd say Jesus fucking Christ. So if I want to locomote, do I want my hips to be doing this or do I want my hips to be doing that? Like, it's easier to raise my foot if I make the one that's projecting me longer and the one that's going to be like scooping out with this fluid exchange in 3 dimensions versus the sagittalitis. The whole thing stems from conflating axial load core function where you don't want the spine to change with movement where you're shifting your weight. If you conflate those two, then you ask stupid questions that you think are smart. And don't let that be an offense to the person asking the question, but think long, hard, and deep at your own question. And don't look for the scientific peer review to sort of buttress your ability to dig deeper into your own question, right? And then try it and actually walk upstairs ramrod straight and don't let your core move, and now walk upstairs with your head over your foot and feel the difference so that you can know through experience, not being told. I was just speaking with a guy on the phone earlier, the Tom Myers colleague, and he was like, oh, I was doing this consulting in the corporate world, and just the permissions and the fear within people in that structural system where you're punished for creativity and you're punished for innovation. Mark Cuban got fired at the electronics store that he was working at because he went out and made the guy $4,000 instead of following the protocol. So, I mean, we got a bunch of lemmings, because we fear being ostracized. I don't want to be wrong and be ridiculed and ostracized. There's nothing worse than that. And so these questions are coming from an uninformed standpoint where if they just turn off your phone for a couple days, just block out all influence and open your mind to the experience and walk up a hill and feel for yourself what's true. Don't worry about anybody else's opinion, including my own. Feel for yourself what is true, because that's the only way to taste orange juice. I can sit there and theorize and peer review all day long and never take a sip and think I know and call those who squeeze oranges and drink it, oh, well, you're wrong. So I could do that all day long. And Tang ain't orange juice. So the way to know it is to experience it and to have the open mind to say, all right, I'm willing to ask myself what if, and take some steps into that deep, dark closet of uncertainty that if I don't step in there, I will never truly know for myself. And that's a personal development strategy. And it's safe. Turn off your phone. Don't tell anybody you did it, right? And if you figure out that for you, core stability, where I have the integrity to not move my core to run, if that works better for you, then do it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, don't make it some destination where you got to be in terms of the position. Make it the destination is economy, efficiency, empirical measurement through time, and then subjective measurement with how does it feel? Was it fun to do? Did it hurt? Or did it feel good? So that would be the response to it is, listen, man, all I can do is just point you to the direction. The tools are the teachers, and treat your body like it's a tool too. Your bones can be tools when you don't have an external. So, and then manipulate a rope. Get over the fact that you're not a sissy for twirling a rope, and get over the fact that you're not good at it for the first 3 or 4 days. Just get over the fact. And then take a step across the threshold and feel it for yourself. And what's happening is, we're reaching, every day it aggregates and gets more and more. And when I get guys who can squat 640 who couldn't squat 640 before a weekend with me, well, okay, now eventually the strong guys, or the people who aspire to be strong guys, you have no choice but to listen. And there's precedent for this willful ignorance and cognitive dissonance. There's precedent. The high jump in sports is the greatest example of cognitive dissonance, willful ignorance, and then, oh yeah, it was obvious all along. Let's rewrite the history. Let's clip the fact that I said this here, now, when. Internet's forever, and who said what, when defines expert. That's it. And I'm going all in because I feel it, and I can teach it, and I can do it. So I know, and that's not enough to convince the skeptic, and nor should it be, but I know. So I can sit here with 100% confidence that, yeah, you need to be there when you get there, and you're not ramrod straight. The DNA ain't straight. The actin and myosin ain't straight. The origin insertion ain't straight. Nothing is straight, except I want my center of mass to go straight, which requires everything to rotate. So, I mean, it's just mindlessness. And the standards of academic education, the standards of common fucking sense have been eroded down to a pathetic state of affairs, and we need to start building it back up. So if that gets under your skin, skeptic who's hitting there, oh, he invented the BOSU Ball, he's a sissy. Well, get over it and figure it out for yourself. So and I do take, I mean, as they take offense to me saying Palloff press is stupid, I take offense to somebody saying head over foot is stupid, because it is so nonsensical. And I know, because I study flight, which is objective, and I study fight, which is subjective, and I make progress every single day at both. And I can pass it on. I don't touch a person who does not get stronger. I don't touch a person who does not get faster. I've never worked with anybody who got worse. Never. And my business is not working with people, because if it were business of working with people, I wouldn't know what I know. Because then I'd have the attenuation of a beginning, a middle, and, no risk, because do no harm. God forbid I have a theory. I could do that with myself, but it would be irresponsible, unprofessional, and a doomed to failure approach if I were trying to teach others. So you take a guy like me with a psychopathic intensity, and Jersey just is honesty and tenacity, where, no, I can make mistakes on myself. And then when I introduce it to someone else, I've vetted the thing, and I'm athletic enough to know. And one of the things that fueled me was the BOSU bashers thinking, unless you're a trained fighter, and I'm talking a trained fighter, I will kick your ass. I don't care how strong you are in a weight room. If you ain't a trained fighter, I'm going to kick your ass. Skinny little BOSU Ball me. And that's true.
All right. We'll set you up a cage match against your favorite opponents.
Well, no, just make sure they're not like a Div 1 college wrestler who won the tournament, or an MMA guy.
Yeah.
But I will say, if you're smaller than me, well, yeah, I'll play. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to box Tyson Fury, but you bring in a 140 pounder who's badass. Yeah, I'll roll around with you. Okay.
Nice.
Because you're going to have to be damn good. You're smaller.
I think that's a really cool place to wrap that up right now. I can't believe it's already been 100 minutes that we've gone straight through. I know we could have, like you said, easily 10 hours could have flown by. And I mean, this is what we live for, these types of conversations. David, in terms of when that ProPulse Power Vest is actually coming out, because I know we want to get our hands on one of those and experience. I want it for my sprinting. I want to see Will and see what he can do with it with his movement practice. When is that going to be commercially available? And when can we get our hands on one of those?
That's a great question. And here's the thing. I'm going to write an email to our innovation group, who we're not launching it to the general public yet, because it's still a prototype. It is a working, viable prototype that is very high quality in terms of just, but in terms of the training stimulus that we're going to be providing, it's unprecedented. So it's a very viable, worth your while prototype that you'll have access to in the innovation group. The number of factors that have to come together to actually do this at the small scale that we'll be doing it in the beginning is fraught with delays. So whereas I thought 2 weeks ago it was going to be ready to go, but the fact that it takes me 45 minutes to put the cartridges into the vest because the pocket isn't sized appropriately means that there's a back and forth with, okay, we got to make an adjustment to this kind of a thing. So for Otto Bolden, 45 minutes, and that doesn't account for the other hours involved in the other components, that's worth it. And I can get it to you. But I'm working as fast as I possibly can, and it's coming. I can't tell you exactly when, and I've already told people it'd be available before. So, Elon Musk, right? It'll be coming. It's coming, right? And I missed the deadline. But I'm hoping we're only talking weeks, but it could be a month, it could be 2. I don't know the answer to that question. You have to be on the we've gotten a lot of interest. People saying, I want 10 of them, right? I want this, I want that. And we can't come close to meeting that demand, let alone they're available. So they will be available like this within, I'm going to guard myself, within 2 to 3 months time. Order it, you're going to get it. Okay. And And I said that before, but that was optimism run amok with all the factors that are out of my control on the inputs necessary. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Any closing thoughts? Anything that you want, if you were going to say the one biggest takeaway that you want people to walk away with from this episode, what's the biggest, most important thing? If someone listened back and they're like, okay, I actually have to go back and I have to listen to what he said there. What do you want people to take away from this conversation?
Balance is the king on the chessboard, and so build upon everything surrounding that king to give that king the capacity to make the kingdom better. And it's simple as head over foot locomotion is your foundation. Only thing you're going to do more of is breathe. Everything else, you're going to take a lot of steps. And if you use an every step is a rep approach and spend 3 weeks just consciously doing it to normalize it and reduce it down to automaticity where the lower brain now knows the pattern, the body feels good with it, then that's what I would say is the departure point. And as you bring yourself into the funnel with that approach, let's go deep into the bones and learn as much as we can.
Beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the Art of Move podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Leave us a little comment and let us know what you thought of this episode. Let us know what stood out to you. Let us know what questions you have. Next time we have David on, if you want us to ask him a specific question, leave a comment about that. You can also DM us directly on Instagram. I am at Anthony.Manuel. Will is at The Art of Move. David is the David Weck. And you can find us all there. If you're listening on Spotify, leaving us a review is always appreciated. Answer our polls, answer our questions. And again, thank you guys for listening. This is episode 103 of the Art of Move podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much again, David. Guys.